So I'm going to sort of be reasonably general to start with, and then we'll drill down on some specific matters as the night goes on. So is that we're getting fatter and sicker, and it's about time we did something about it. Okay. Now, as Nicole said, my previous job was with the Aussie cricket team, and I finished that 12 months ago, well before their little sandpaper expedition in South Africa. Clearly, they were missing my moral guidance, and it would never have happened if I'd been there. But the one thing you learn when you're with sporting teams is that it's really important that you've got to jump in the middle of the photo when we win World Cups and things like that. So, that was the go. There we go. All right. So that's all. That's my previous life, and I've moved on. And I guess one of the things that talking to people and talking to friends of mine and so on, they tell me nowadays that we used to think we knew what we're supposed to eat, but nowadays we're just confused. There's all these different diets. There's keto and there's paleo and there's vegetarian and vegan and Mediterranean and Atkins and all sorts of things. And we're totally confused. And there's so many books out there. Everyone writes a book. That's what you're going to do these days. There's literally the biggest section in a bookstore nowadays is the food section. So there's a lot of confusion out there. And I think it's understandable, really. I think we're all lost and confused. My own journey, I used to be quite interested in nutrition many years ago, and in fact I co-authored the first sports nutrition book in this country, Food for Sport, way back in the 1980s. Very few of you were even born then. And but I sort of, after a while, it sort of became boring. I mean, it was all just carbs, and pasta parties, and Gatorade, and Powerade, and gels, and so on. And that was sports nutrition for 30 years and so on. So I really, lost a fair bit of interest in nutrition. And like most doctors, I didn't really think nutrition was important. I guess things changed for me. I was living and working in England, single-handedly winning trophies for the Liverpool Football Club in my own modest way. And if you'd asked me then, well, how are you? You're well, how's your health? I'd have said, yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. I just turned 60. I've been on a low-fat diet for 30 or 40 years, like everyone else. I exercise regularly. My blood sugars were fine. I was a healthy 60-year-old. The reality was that I probably wasn't quite as healthy as I thought. I had a family history of type 2 diabetes. My father had developed diabetes at that very age, at 60, and I'd seen what it had done to him. So I was pretty conscious I didn't want to go down that track, I can tell you. I was overweight, borderline obese. I'd probably put on half a kilogram a year for 30 years. Just like many middle-aged people, the classic middle-aged spread. My kids are sort of poking me in the guts and saying, come on, Dad, how about it? And I'm shrugging my shoulders and saying, well, hang on a minute. I eat a low-fat diet, I exercise, what am I supposed to do? They weren't very sympathetic to that approach, of course. So I was, at a BMI of 30, I was sort of borderline obese. My bloods weren't that great. I had high insulin levels, I had high triglyceride levels, and I had a disease called fatty liver for a long time. Now there I am, I'm either 6 months pregnant or significantly overweight. This fatty liver that I'd had for 10 years, and like a typical doctor, I'd completely ignored it. I didn't really understand it, and I figured I was on a low-fat diet, so I just thought I would go away. But I'd been around for 10 years. So there I am, 6 years ago, 60 years old, 93 kilograms, and probably not as metabolically healthy. In retrospect, I was clearly pre-diabetic. So around that time, I heard about my friend Tim Noakes. Tim and I have been friends for 20 or 30 years. We've been on the same sort of sports medicine, sports science circuit, and we regularly bump into each other and so on. And Tim's a very super smart guy, probably the smartest guy I've come across, really. And he's always someone who's challenged beliefs. That's the title of his book, and he's really always been proven right. For those of you in the sports science world would know, he developed the theory of fatigue. Central fatigue theory. He looked at hyponatremia in runners and so on, and challenged orthodoxies and was proven right. So around that time, Tim came out. Now, not in the way people come out these days, but he came out as being, having abandoned his mantra of lots of carbs required. He was a runner. He'd run lots of marathons. He'd run Comrades marathons in South Africa, and but all of a sudden, he'd got unwell, he was overweight, he was not feeling good, and he was type 2 diabetic. And he read somewhere that maybe carbs were the problem. And he thought, oh, let's give it a go. And after a week, he said he felt like a new person. And he started to run better, he started to lose weight, and he reversed his type 2 diabetes. So he came out and talked about that. And when I heard about that, I thought, whoa, boy, wow, that's big. You know, Tim's finally gone loopy. You know, he's had a few ideas over the years that have been a bit borderline, but this time he's really lost it. But I guess because of who he was, I thought, no, I should have a look at this. So I started to read. The first book I got was Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes. Gary's a New York science writer, not a doctor, but this was a book that just blew me away. It talked about the fats and carbohydrates, but the most fascinating thing was it talked about the politics of how the sort of low-fat movement had won out over the low-sugar movement back in the 60s and 70s. And this book just blew me away. I'll put it down every night and I'll just say, this couldn't be right. Like, we couldn't have got something like this wrong. Something as basic as this. The whole of Western society has been on a low-fat diet for 30 or 40 years. And here this guy suggesting that we're completely wrong. And it was quite confronting. Very, very difficult, quite disturbing. So that prompted me to read more books, and I read lots more books, and I read lots of articles, and I really got a little bit OCD, I guess, and I really got heavily into this. And I started to believe that maybe we had been wrong. So I'm a doctor, I'm a scientist, so I thought, well, it's time for some science. Now, as scientists, we also know that scientific experiments with an n equals 1 are a waste of time.